Good afternoon and welcome to the news around the globe on High Impact Television. I am Oluwaseun Olusegun. Here are the top stories. 6 aid workers kidnapped by suspected Islamic extremist. Tunisia's president, Essebsi, dies at 92. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit policy rejected. Over 100 migrants missing off Libyan coast, International Organization of Migration. Apple pays $1 billion for Intel units to gain cheap independence. And in sports, boxing star Evander Holyfield's son follow in his footsteps. Here is the news in detail. Nigerian President Muhammadu Buhari has promised that his administration would evolve policies that would foster economic growth, drive industrialization, and enhance efficiency. The president made the pledge while delivering his closing remarks at the end of the two-day presidential policy dialogue session, which lasted for over 7 hours and was attended by governors, policy experts, members of the private sector, and the Prime Minister of Ethiopia, Abiy Ahmed, who was one of the speakers. The president said his administration in the next 4 years would explore deliberations at a meeting to develop policies that are aimed at stimulating significant investment that would industrialize the agriculture sector, facilitate private sector participation in infrastructure development, and unlock growth potentials in the petroleum sector, and also improve ease of doing business. An international charity says 6 of its aid workers who were kidnapped in Nigeria last week have appeared in the video. Action Against Hunger says the 6, comprised of 1 staff member, plus drivers and health workers employed locally, are apparently in a good condition of health. It is urging captors to release them. Surrounded by 5 men believed to be her colleagues, the woman says her name is Grace and calls on the Nigerian government and international community to intervene. No group has claimed responsibility for the abduction, but it is suspected to be the work of Islamist insurgents. Tunisia's president, Beji Caid Essebsi, has died, according to a statement from the presidency on Thursday. Essebsi, who was 92 years old, was taken to a military hospital on Wednesday. A leading figure in the country's fortunes since 2011, Essebsi was hospitalized late last month and spent a week in hospital after suffering what authorities described as a severe health crisis. On Thursday morning, the president of the republic died at a military hospital in Tunis. The burial ceremony will be announced later, the presidency said in a statement. According to the constitution, the Speaker of Parliament will temporarily serve as president. More than 100 migrants were missing after their boat sank off the coast of Libya in what might be the worst tragedy in the Mediterranean this year, aid agencies said on Thursday. The sinking took place off the coast of the city of Coms, some 100 kilometers from Tripoli, said Safa Mseli, spokesperson for the International Organization of Migration in Libya. About 145 migrants were rescued by the Libyan Coast Guard, and survivors had reported about 150 people remained missing, she said. General Ayub Qasim, a spokesman for the Libyan Navy, said that 134 migrants were rescued and a body recovered, while 115 other migrants are still missing. Paris saw a record high temperature of 42.6 degrees Celsius on Thursday amid a heat wave that broke records across Western Europe. A red alert was issued in North France. Germany also set a new temperature record of 41.5 degrees Celsius, passing the figure just a day before. The UK recorded a record temperature of July for 38.1 degrees Celsius, with trains told to run more slowly to stop rails buckling. The Netherlands also recorded its highest ever temperature at 40.7 degrees Celsius. Top European officials have refused the Brexit policy of Boris Johnson after his first speech to UK members of parliament. The new Prime Minister said he was committed to getting rid of Irish border backstop, which has long been a bone of contention in negotiations. The EU's chief Brexit negotiator, Michel Barnier, said removing the backstop guarantee was unacceptable. Mr. Johnson also spoke on the phone with EU Commission President Jean-Claude Juncker. The United States federal government's move to resume executions after a 16-year hiatus has drawn sharp criticism from rights groups and leading Democrats. Several candidates for the Democratic presidential nomination called for the death penalty to be abolished. On Thursday, Attorney General William Barr said 5 inmates would be executed. They had been convicted of murders or rapes of children or the elderly, he said. The executions have been scheduled for December 2019 and January 2020. North Korea has called the test of 2 new missiles on Thursday a solemn warning against what it described as the South Korean warmongers. The short-range missiles were fired into the Sea of Japan, also known as the East Sea, from Wonsan on North Korea's east coast. Leader Kim Jong-un said his country was forced to develop weapons to eliminate potential and direct threats. He said the test involved a new tactical guided weapons system. A woman in a blonde wig is suspected of carrying out a hit on 2 alleged Israeli underworld figures in a busy Chinese restaurant in Mexico City. Alon Azuli, who is 41 years old, and Benjamin Yeshurun, who is 44 years old, were shot dead on Wednesday as fellow diners looked on. The woman, who was arrested as she attempted to flee, told police it was a crime of passion. But police are now investigating if it was actually a settling of scores between rival criminal gangs. Austria has issued an arrest warrant for a Russian military officer it says recruited a colonel who allegedly spent 30 years spying for Moscow. Police in Salzburg said European and international warrants had been issued for the officer, named by officials as 65-year-old Igor Egorovich Zatsev. He is suspected of having been the colonel's handler from the 1990s until the colonel's arrest last year. An Australian man's conviction for a gangland murder has been quashed after a high-profile scandal where his lawyer was revealed to be a police informant. Farouk Oman, who is 37 years old, was freed on Friday after serving 12 years in jail for the killing of a Melbourne crime figure. It was the first legal test of the so-called Lawyer X informant scandal, which is now the focus of a major inquiry into police conduct. In the United States, 4 major automakers said on Thursday that they have reached an agreement with California on fuel efficiency rules, bypassing the Trump administration efforts to strip the state of the right to fight climate change by setting its own standards. California and other states had vowed to enforce stricter Obama-era emission standards after President Donald Trump proposed rolling back the federal rules. Automakers had worried that court battles between state and federal government could create years of uncertainty for manufacturers. California, the most populous U.S. state, accounts for about 12% of U.S. vehicle sales, and if the administration recognizes the deal, it would allow automakers to operate under one set of rules. The European Central Bank has hinted that it could cut interest rates to tackle a slowdown in the Eurozone economy. It said a weak manufacturing sector and uncertainty over Brexit and trade threatened to derail growth in the bloc. The ECB, which kept interest rates on hold on Thursday, said it saw rates at current or lower levels until mid-2020. It is also considering other measures to support the Eurozone, including resuming quantitative easing. The United States government will pay American farmers that are hurt by the trade war with China between $15 and $115 per acre in an aid package, totaling about $16 billion, officials said on Thursday. Farmers in the South are poised to see higher rates than in the Midwest. The assistance, starting in mid to late August, follows Republican President Donald Trump's $12 billion package that was released last year and was aimed at making up for lower farm good prices and lost sales. United States farmers have been among the hardest hit in the year-long trade war between the world's two largest economies. Shipments of soybeans, the most valuable U.S. farm export to top buyer China, sank to a 16-year low in 2018. Democrats criticized the move, saying farmers needed fair trade instead of a bailout. Apple Inc. took a major step towards supplying its own smartphone chips by purchasing the majority of Intel Core's modem business in a deal valued at $1 billion, the company said on Thursday. Under the deal, about 2,200 Intel employees will join Apple, along with intellectual property, equipment, and leases. Combined with its existing portfolio, Apple will have 17,000 wireless technology patents, ranging from cellular communication standards to modems, making it a more powerful player in global licensing talks. Intel shares rose 5.7% to $55.05 after the news, and the company reports that its earnings beat analyst expectations. After the deal, Intel will retain the right to develop modems for non-smartphone applications such as PCs, industrial equipment, and self-driving cars. Now in entertainment, U.S. rapper A$AP Rocky will go on trial for assault in Sweden on July 30th over his alleged involvement in a street brawl in Stockholm, the Swedish public prosecutor announced on Thursday, prompting an angry response from President Donald Trump. Rocky Myers was detained about 3 weeks ago following an altercation with two men on June 30th. Myers has said he is innocent and that the men provoked him and his two companions, who have also been charged with assault. If convicted, they could face up to 2 years in jail. And finally in sports, son of Evander Holyfield, the former undisputed heavyweight champion, has decided to follow in his father's footsteps. 21-year-old Evan Holyfield has over 80 amateur fights to his name. In his words, "It is a mission, my professional career. I'm starting something new and I'm leaving something behind, especially my amateur career that I really enjoyed. I almost feel like I'm graduating for another stage. It's really an interesting feeling." Interestingly, Evan excels in a completely different discipline, football. Evan once boxed in the same category as his father. He will be trained by Maurice Watkins and Tim Hallmark. The latter worked alongside his father. And that's it on the news this afternoon, but before we go, here is another look at the top stories. 6 aid workers kidnapped by suspected Islamic extremist. Tunisia's president, Essebsi, dies at 92. UK Prime Minister Boris Johnson's Brexit policy rejected. Over 100 migrants missing off Libyan coast, International Organization of Migration. Apple pays $1 billion for Intel units to gain chip independence. And in sports, boxing star Evander Holyfield's son follows in his footsteps. For more news, updates, and educative programs, you can watch us live on www.highimpactstudios.com. You follow us across all our social media platforms at High Impact TV. Thank you very much for joining us. I am Oluwaseun Olusegun. Good afternoon.